Hey guys, sorry. Happy Monday. Welcome to another Maker Mornings with Meg tutorial. I have a fantastic project to share with you guys today that was absolutely inspired by my good friend Katie Senkarik, who is a very talented art teacher in Florida. She is also a Stampin' Up demonstrator on our LovenStamps team. And we are featuring a new product tool that Oldies but goodies. You may have this from many years ago, or it might be totally new to you. But either way, Katie showed a project on our team Facebook page that made me remember that I needed to get this out and show you guys. So the tool that we're using is the Soft Pastels assortment. And let me show you this. It kind of hides in the catalog, so you can always look it up in the accessories in the back. The video tutorial will later this morning have the supply list, so sorry I don't have it yet. But this is what the inside of the pastels looks like. So we, many years ago, like 15 years ago, Stampin' Up used to have a chalk tray that was zillions of colors, and to be honest, I never use more than a few of them, so I'm perfectly happy with this assortment of colors here. And I'm gonna show you two fantastic techniques today that make the most of these. I think you guys are really gonna like them. We are going to use the Plentiful Plants stamp set, which is part of Bloom Where You're Planted. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about how I picked the colors for this as we go along. So, I don't know where you guys are. It's kind of rainy here on this Monday, but still a great day for stamping. So I'm gonna flip you guys down to the table in a second. The other thing that we are talking about is we're gonna be using a Versamark ink pad. So I talked about Versamark last time we got together, I think, was last time when we did our heat embossing. Oh yeah, we did. We did our heat embossing and our gold leafing for our sunshine card. So we're gonna need that Versamark pad again. So if you haven't already gotten one, definitely go ahead and get it ready. So let's see. Okay, here we go. Oh, so hey Sue and Sharon and Rita and Vicky and Carol and Cheryl and Tanya. I'm so glad you guys are here. And like Sue said, the pastels are new to her. So I know they're gonna be new to a lot of us stampers. I put a link in the video tutorial here. So you can click in the video description, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. But years ago, I did love my Stampin' Pastels. Was what we called them then. Now they're Soft Pastels. But I posted a number of video tutorials. They're like from 11 years ago. So, hey Gian, you can check the link there and watch some video tutorials from that time. Obviously the stamp sets are long retired because that's like ancient Stampin' Up history, but you'll be able to get the technique ideas. So, all right, we are going to start with our Poppin Pastels technique, and then I'm gonna show you our other technique mixed in. So we're gonna do Poppin Pastels and Marbleized background. Poppin Pastels uses the sticky feature from Versamark ink. Remember last week when we were heat embossing, I said it's just a little sticky, not like, you know, annoyingly tacky, just enough to hold like a little powder. Well, the Stampin' Pastels, the Soft Pastels, are like a small amount of powder. And what we're gonna do with them is we are going to use them to stamp on our card here. So let's see, I'm gonna do 2 of these, and I've got my Plentiful Plants stamps, and I'm gonna go ahead and ink these up and go ahead and stamp them. So I'm gonna get this really nice and juicy. I know there's a big splotch on my Versamark pad there. Just try to ignore it. It's not a big deal. It's what happens when you have your pad for a long time and you accidentally forget to close it before you put embossing powder spray, you know, have embossing powder flowing all over the place. So basically what I'm doing is I am stamping some of the succulents and the plants here that I want on our project. So I'm gonna need these 4, and I'll show it to you in a second so you can see better. And then I'm going to hold off on the plant that's gonna go under this one. So can you guys see? I don't know if you can see. Well, you'll see when we start to put the chalk on. Now, the pastels are have like a nice coating on the sides of them, which is great because it means that you, when you pick them up, won't get pastels all over your hands. You can hold them. But I actually want a better surface area on this, so I've kind of picked one of the 4 sides that I've scraped, and I'm going to show you the scraping when we get to the marble background technique. But then I'm going to take a sponge dauber, and so this side is all scraped, and I'm just going to pounce on here with my sponge dauber, okay? And what I'm doing is I'm pouncing on here until the full image is covered with a starter layer of the chalk, okay? All right, once it's covered, then I can go back and I can do a little bit of circular motion, kind of burnish there, just really gently, because I don't want to smear my ink, so that I get a nice image, okay? So see how that's a really pretty light, light tone, kind of soft look. This is a great stamp set for stamps that either are 2-step stamp sets. If you look back in my videos from 11 years ago, I did my Poppin Pastels Technique on a 2-step stamp set. So it gave us a really nice light background, and then let us give it some definition with the over layer, the second layer. And you can see that it's really important to do both of those. You want to pounce to fill the space, and then you want to go back and you want to just burnish just a little bit to catch all the edges of that image. All right, so we have that one. Oh, I guess we have one more green one here. If you kind of tilt your head around, you can see kind of where the image is, because that Versamark stays a little bit shiny while you're kind of waiting for it to do its thing and grab onto your pastel. Like I said, you don't have to worry about it drying super fast. It's not gonna dry before you have a chance to get your ink on there or your pastel on there. And then I'm gonna do my burnishing thing again, just to set that pastel on there. Now the question that everyone used to ask, let's see. Hey, I didn't realize that they're new to some of you guys. Well, this is exciting that they're gonna be new to you. And hi, Angela. So one of the questions everybody gets is, okay, that looks great, Meg, but do they smear? And if you look back at those videos, or now, I'll tell you the same thing. If you lick your finger and smush it around your image, then yes, they'll smear. So don't lick your finger, don't lick your cards, and you'll be just fine. You'll hear some people say that they seal theirs with a coat of hairspray or a coat of acrylic spray. You don't necessarily have to do that. We're making cards. It'll be fine. It's not gonna like fly off the paper or anything like that. And they certainly won't fade. All right, and then I'm gonna take this purple. And if you're just tuning in, you need to know that when you first take your pastels out of the box, you will not be able to do this technique here on the side where you're like picking up pastel from the stick. You need to do the scraping part, which I'm gonna show you. And once you've scraped one side, I kind of recommend just scraping one side. You'll be able to see which one it is so you can keep it consistent. But when you scrape just one side, then you are going to be able to get that chalk out of there, that pastel out of there more easily. Okay, all right, so now we have 2 pots and 2 plants. And then over here, I'm gonna stamp one more time. I didn't do this the first time we stamped because I wanted it to be separate. I wanted our pot here to be blue. This one's gonna be the inside of our card. This turquoise color, super pretty, Coastal Cabana-ish. But I didn't want the green to overlap into it, so I just waited and stamped them separately. So that's a hint for you too. If you don't want your colors to travel and your stamp set has pieces separated, then just set them up that way. Okay. So that is our Poppin Pastels technique. So that's our Versamark pad. And let's come in here now with a greeting that's gonna go inside our card. A little note with the biggest thanks, okay? So this piece is gonna be as is. This one is gonna be our die cut because this stamp set has some fabulous dies, these guys here, and these guys here, which I've already taken out because we're using them. And I'm going to go ahead and die cut these pieces. So let's see. I I'm gonna pull this. So here is the little hanging basket part, and that's gonna go here for part of our plant. And I'm gonna pull you guys back up. Okay, if you get motion sickness, look away for a second. Woo! Like trying not have an earthquake. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and die cut. So I'll talk to you guys while I do that. I have our dies and our plants, and I'm going to set these up. Now if you, oh, hello. There we go. Hello. If you haven't done die cutting before, it's really pretty simple. You're going to grab your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and my favorite thing to do is to take the dies and line them up with our stamped images. Now here is a different thing than what we usually do for die cutting, and this is kind of important for this technique. When you use the Poppin Pastels technique, so that one where we stamped in Versamark and then we added the color with the pastels and the sponge daubers. Oh, we didn't even say, those are sponge daubers. If you hadn't seen those before, that's what we were using. But I like to use a piece of washi tape, which I'll show you here in 1 second, to hold the pieces in place on my die. I try very hard not to, I'll show you guys. I didn't put the tape over my stamped images. You can kind of see that there. Usually it doesn't matter, but when you are doing Poppin Pastels, you want to remember not to go across the washi tape on your stamped image because you don't want it to pull any of that color out. So, all right, let's pull these back in. Okay, motion sickness moment. I'm gonna flip you guys down again. All right, so there we have our die cut pieces. And I'm just gonna pull these apart and this is gonna come here. All right, so now we have a whole nother technique to do with our pastels, and that is going to be marbled backgrounds. And I'm gonna move this out of the way because there's water, a tray of water involved, and so always a little risky. Think about where your stuff is. And I just grabbed this white, does anybody else have these Corning containers? I grabbed this white one because it has a really nice white base to it, so I think you'll be able to see pretty well what you're doing. So, morning Jenny, hi Trish. Okay, so now we have our pastels. I'm just gonna set them on top here. And a pair of paper snips. So what, when I opened these, if you saw the Poppin Pastels part, you know I said that these pastels are coated on all 4 sides, which is great because it means you can pick them up without getting pastel all over your hands, okay? You can, you know, use them however you like, but if you want to use them with a sponge daubers, you really need a better surface area. So what I'm gonna do is show you how I scraped. I'm just gonna open my scissors, pinch it right in the center, and I'm just gonna scrape right across the top of the pastel. And can you see it falling into the tray there? I'm gonna get a good amount in there. I know it looks like I'm using a ton of pastel, but you know what? This stuff's gonna last you a long time, okay? Don't worry about it too much. But my recommendation is do try and keep track. Can you see how it's spreading when I add the second color? So I'm gonna kind of move it around. Do try and keep track of where, which side you're scraping so that you can always scrape the same side. All right, and then I'm gonna add some purple. And what this pastel is doing is I'm making tiny shavings. You do not wanna have big chunks because the big chunks will just sink right away and you won't have them for the technique. You want to have little tiny dust basically that's gonna fall in there and give you this really gorgeous technique. I think, okay, I'm afraid to lift up the dish, so I'm gonna pull you guys down closer, and I hope that you can kind of see, is it focusing okay? Can you see what's in there? All right, so I know this is like super close. I'm gonna pick you guys back up again. All right, and then I'm gonna take a piece of the Fluid 100 watercolor paper, and, oh, Tanya says she has dishes like this. I'm gonna set this here. I'm gonna grab my tissue so that it's really close. I'm just gonna lay this paper down on top, okay? So you don't have to have a big piece of container for this. but you do want to have enough container that your paper will lay flat. And then if you saw what I did when I picked that up, I tilted it and I made sure to just blot that edge, because what's gonna happen is any extra is gonna run downhill onto the edge there. And so you wanna be able to blot that so that it doesn't just wet your paper. You also wanna start with a paper that is a little bit bigger. Man, this one worked out really well. You wanna start with a paper that is a little bit bigger than what your final size is gonna be, because sometimes the edge gets saturated, the edge of the paper, and you don't want it to get buckled. So that's more likely to happen if you're using like a basic white cardstock or Whisper White. The Fluid 100 paper works really well for this technique, okay? All right, so this is a great way to marble background paper. So now I've let this sit for a second. I feel pretty good about just tapping a little bit on the edge there to get that set. Now, you don't have to throw this away. The only part of the pastel that is still available to you is what's floating on the surface tension of the water. Hooray for surface tension. So whatever's floating on the top, you can still use, but you could just take your pastel and you could shave more onto the top of it and kind of do another round from there. So, you know, do it a few times. You can even take the same paper and dip it again to pick up more color if it came out lighter the first time than you want. But generally speaking, this is not gonna be a super bright, bold, saturated technique. This is gonna be a really light background technique. Okay, questions. Cindy says it's great. Trish says she likes it. Deborah says, thanks for using pastels. Angela asked, can you do this with regular cardstock and will it work? I think so. I think that you can use the regular basic white cardstock. My biggest fear with that is that the edges of the paper are going to take up water. So you want to make sure that however much space you're going to use, like I'm going to die cut this one here, you might want to err on the side of caution and have bigger margins on a basic white paper. Okay, so let's set this out of the way. And I'm going to die cut this. Let's see. I'll just bring in my mini here. And so honestly, Angela, I haven't tried it yet. I'll have to give it a shot and see what I find. But I know that the Fluid watercolor or the Fluid 100 paper works fabulously for this. So, all right, so I'm gonna run this through my mini, which is handy, and crank this. I always feel like I'm like playing with doll furniture or something with this little guy. Okay, so there we have our die cut background, and now we need to put our card together. So the other thing about the Fluid paper is that it really doesn't like hold water for a long time. It really dries quickly because the paper is really absorbent and just diffuses the water fast. So, all right, so I'm gonna bring in a piece of crumb cake cardstock here, and we're like all crooked. It's driving me a little crazy. Let's see, is that better? Okay. I'm gonna bring this in and I'm gonna move you guys up just a tiny bit. There we go. And bring in our pieces from our card. And let me show you how to assemble this. So there are actually a bunch of different fun plants here in our, guys are like super crooked, sorry. A bunch of fun plants. Don't you love my repositioning pieces here? Okay, here we go. There we go. Okay, stamp set, a bunch of fun plants, lots of different shapes, different vases, and the stamps themselves are perfect for the Poppin Pastels technique, okay? So I'm going to bring this in here, and I'm gonna show you this layering here. So on these, let's see, this plant piece fits here in our little basket. And I want this one to hang in here, but instead of just laying it on top, I'm gonna weave it in here so that it is above and below. I don't know if you guys love macrame or have macrame hangers. They're totally back. I don't know, maybe they never went away. But I'm gonna tuck this plant down so that it sits on top of the pot. And I'm just using my fingers to kind of pinch it so it stays in place. And then I'm gonna flip it to the back side. And let's see, maybe I move this over a little. There we go, I can see. I'm gonna grab some Stampin' Dimensionals and pop a dimensional on the back here so that it holds all my layers in place. It holds the macrame hanger, it holds the 2 pots, it holds all those pieces. Then I might just put one more here just to make sure, okay? And then because this macrame thing wants to kind of fold away, I'm gonna just pop a little tiny bit of glue. There we go, that was more than I needed on there, so that's gonna hold. So this is gonna sit for a second. I'm just gonna drop a block on top of it so that it holds. And then this little guy, also very cute, I'm going to tuck here and pop a Stampin' Dimensional right there at that intersection to hold those pieces together. I do love a Stampin' Dimensional for adhering pieces. Okay, so then this is going to get peeled from the back. I'm gonna bring in my element here, and I'm gonna pop this on here, and look at how pretty those cards colors are together. So the background technique, the Poppin Pastels, just sort of gorgeous. And then I'm gonna layer this on here, and I think that's plenty of time for our little macrame hanger. Before I put this on though, I'm gonna grab some linen thread. I'll just go crazy and cut a piece. Linen thread is like a major standby, so it's kind of a staple like Versamark or things like that that you just always want. And it's really inexpensive, so make sure you add it to your wish list for your next order. And I'll make sure that when I do the supply list here in a couple minutes, it'll be in the video description link too. Okay. All right, so I have the little tiny ends of my bow set. I just tied it right through the hole that is conveniently provided as part, there we go, of that die. And, oh, my glue's not holding, that's okay. I can always add more later or squish it down. I'm gonna peel those dimensional backings off and pop this on our card, and we're gonna have to add a greeting here. So I'm gonna put this in the background. All right, so we have our layers, and then I'm going to go ahead and pop this on our card. Now, before I glue this down, I'm gonna do my crazy, you know, Maggie, you're really doing that thing. And I'm gonna stamp directly on the card. I'm using crumb cake ink on crumb cake cardstock. And I always like, if you're doing something that is like you get everything all finished with a whole card, everything's glued down, and then you stamp your greeting and you mess up, then that's just a disaster. So don't glue anything down until you know for sure that this is everything's stamped that you can't go back and fix. So I'm gonna pop that on there, and yep, that looks beautiful. All right, it's a little higher than maybe I was thinking I would do, but that'll be okay. And then I'm gonna take my greeting. Oh, it's a lot higher. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna show you guys this trick. I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna fold that inside. And now this is gonna become the inside of our card, and I'm gonna fold that in there, okay? See how I left myself a solution? Now I'm gonna stamp it again, but closer to the bottom. Ugh, so much better, so that now that fits on there. Okay. So, oh, and I didn't mention the rectangle, you can see it really nicely on the back with the scallops, and the stitched line is from the Stitch So Sweetly die. So I'm using the second largest rectangle for this. I actually intended to use the first largest rectangle, but then I really liked this cute one for the size of these 2 plants together. So, okay, so there's the front of our card, and then we have our Poppin Pastels Technique piece to use on the inside, and I will pop some tape on the back. If you're wondering about this marker on my hand, my son ran in the Illinois Section 8 sectionals track meet over the weekend. He did great. We were so proud of him. He got a PR and came in 3rd. So that was our entry mark for the sectional. So woohoo for track. All right, so there is our finished Poppin Pastels card. So 2 fabulous techniques with the pastels. Poppin Pastels, which uses Versamark, and the sponge daubers are kind of my favorite. You could use blending brushes and stuff too. I haven't played with them so much, but the daubers are just great. And then the pastels with water, here's my little Corning reminder, to do the marbleized background. So lots of great possibilities for those. So like I said, when we were Hi again. Like I said when I was doing the project, don't expect this technique to be like a super saturated kind of color. It'll be pastel and it is gorgeous. So, you know, kind of capitalize on the pastels and think about making sure that you pick stamp sets and themes that coordinate with a really nice pastel kind of look, rather than, you know, trying to force it to be something that's bold when it's not. So here is our pastels kind of card. Let's see, I should figure out where these guys are in the book for you. They're kind of hiding at the bottom of a page in a way that, let's see, I said you should use the index, but I can't find the index myself. They're kind of hiding at the bottom of a page. Oh, here they are. They're on the assortments page. These guys right down here. And they are a pretty inexpensive tool, budget friendly, to add to your stamping collection. So that's the page from the new catalog. If you haven't gotten this yet, it just started at the beginning of this month. It's been like just a couple weeks. Whew, I feel like it's been forever. And Carol said very soft and feminine color. Yes, that's a great way to characterize it. So, all right, guys. Well, I hope you have a wonderful Monday and enjoy your day also. And maybe go ahead and check out those Stampin' Pastels. Like I said, if you can't wait for me to show you more technique tutorials, you can like go back in time 11 years, do a little time warp and go back and watch those old videos. They're linked in the video description here. So Carla says, hey Meg, surprised to see you live. Thought you'd be in Hawaii. I know. So all my stamping family that was able to travel got to go to Maui. They've earned the incentive trips for the last year or two. And I did, and we were going to go, but timing and things with the finals and end of the school year didn't work out. We love to travel with our family. So we'll just look forward to next year instead. But it is really fun to see all my demonstrator friends posting their Maui pictures because I love just seeing everybody having a good time together. So we're living vicariously. And we were in Hawaii 5 or 6 years ago for another Stampin' Up trip. So we'll look forward to more. So yes, so you get me this week. I'm here and I'll be posting again on Wednesday and Friday for more Stampin' Up Maker Morning with Meg tutorials. So, all right, guys, have a fabulous day. And I look forward to seeing you later this week. Have a good day.